This is the Nokia G50, the brand's most affordable 5G handset. And in this video I'm going to be unboxing the device, talking about all of its quirks and features, to help you decide if it's the right option for you or not. So let's get straight into it. So in the box you get the product safety booklets, a TPU case, which might be a region specific thing, a 10-watt charging brick, earbuds, which are probably another market specific thing, and a USB-A to USB-C cable. Okay, seriously, the color is pretty awesome. This is called the ocean blue, but you can also get the device in a midnight sun color, which is like bronzish. There is also a pre-applied screen protector. The phone ships with Android 11 out of the box, and here are the apps that come pre-installed on it. So outside of all the Google applications, you have Amazon Shopping, ExpressVPN, Spotify, and My Device, which is the Nokia support application. The setup process is pretty straightforward. And you have the side-mounted fingerprint scanner, which is integrated into the power button, which you're asked to immediately set up. The phone also supports Face Unlock. Here are all the pre-installed wallpapers. This is the signature wallpaper for the device. While we wait for the phone to install all the apps, let's have a quick hardware tour. On the front you get a massive 6.82-inch IPS LCD display with an HD Plus resolution and a V-notch, with a chunky bottom bezel and the Nokia logo so you don't forget which device you're using. And the display can go up to 450 nits of brightness. The top houses a 3.5mm headphone jack and a microphone. The bottom side has a single firing speaker, a USB-C charging port, and another microphone. On the right you have the volume rocker keys and the power button, which has the fingerprint scanner integrated into it. And the location of the fingerprint is easy to reach with your thumb. On the left you get the Google Assistant button, which can luckily be disabled, and your SIM/SD card slot, which is a hybrid slot, so either 2 SIM cards or a SIM card and a memory card. And the frame of the device is made out of matte plastic, which is practical as it's not slippery. One of the coolest aspects is the back plate, which is also made out of plastic, but it has this nice satin finish and it has a very nice cool effect. So under direct light, the phone looks really blue, but the moment the light goes away, it looks like a very dark blue color. Very cool. And the back houses a massive 5000 mAh battery. As for charging, you can charge it with a speed of up to 18 watts. As for the cameras, you get a 48MP main camera, a 5MP ultra-wide camera, and a 2MP depth sensor with a single LED flash. The selfie camera is an 8MP shooter. As for weight and in-hand feel, the phone weighs 220 grams and it feels quite hefty. In terms of size, this is one of the largest Nokia devices out there. I like the way the phone feels in the hand, as it feels like it's really well made, despite its price. As for the processor, the phone comes with the Snapdragon 480 5G chipset paired with the Adreno 619 GPU. And as I mentioned earlier, this is their most affordable 5G handset, and it supports a generous range of 5G bands too. It comes with either 4 or 6 gigs of RAM with up to 128 gigabytes of built-in storage. The unit with me has 6 gigs of RAM, and I bought it here from the UAE for 899 dirhams, which is approximately $250 US. In terms of connectivity, you get Bluetooth 5.0, support for Wi-Fi AC as well as AX, and NFC. In terms of software support, you'll get 2 years of OS updates, so starting from 11 you'll go all the way up to Android 13, and 3 years of security updates. Now let's have a look at the camera features. So you get portrait mode with all the Zeiss effects for bokeh effects. There's night mode for enhanced low light shots. There's dual sight, which allows you to capture video from the front and the rear cameras at the same time. You can capture slow motion video and time-lapse video. There's even pro mode, which allows you to manually adjust all the camera controls. So you can adjust things such as the shutter speed, the ISO, the focus, as well as the white balance. You can even capture raw images in Pro mode, which is cool. As for video resolution, you're limited to up to 1080p at 60 frames per second, and 1080p at 30 frames per second for the front-facing camera. Even though by default you capture 12 megapixel images, which are pixel binned from the 48 megapixel main camera, you can also utilize the full resolution and capture 48 megapixel images too. Interesting enough, the 8 megapixel front-facing camera has two cool tricks. One of them is video stabilization, so you'll capture steady footage even with the front-facing camera. And the other one is the ability to capture night shots using the selfie camera. Here is an image captured with the selfie camera using night mode. It's alright. I just took this picture here in my studio with the main camera, and honestly, the quality is actually really good. Have a look. I'll share the image as well. Of course, further testing is still required, but early impressions of the camera are quite positive. Let's test out the speaker.
Hey, this is Abdulla, and I want to talk about a device that Nokia Mobile released in the last 2 years that I feel like deserved a lot more recognition than it actually got. I'm talking here, of course, about the Nokia 8.3.
I have to say that the single bottom firing speaker at maximum volume is a lot louder than I personally expected. Quality at maximum volume, on the other hand, is just okay. It's not bad. Now that my home screen is set up, let's do a quick speed test. And I will start by removing all the apps from the background. Let's go. Honestly, that was actually really quick. Let's see if it's actually keeping these things in the background or not. It is, and in my opinion, it passes the speed and multitasking test with flying colors. Now let's try Geekbench to see how well it handles a benchmark test. .508 single core and 1634 multi-core, which is in line with what the X10 and the X20 are doing in terms of performance, so that's quite good. Let's try AndroBench to find out the memory speeds they've used. Once again, the scores are in line with what the X10 and the X20 are doing. This is great news for people who are actually interested in buying this phone, and great news for people who are worried about the longevity of their device. Let's have a look at the gaming performance, and we'll start with the graphical settings in Call of Duty Mobile. These are the default graphical settings that the phone comes with. So the graphical quality is at high and the frame rate is at high. Let's try a game at max. So far the frame rate is pretty much flawless. I haven't noticed any dropped frames at all while playing, even at maximum frame rate, which is really good. The gaming performance, as you have just seen, is really good. So I have no complaints whatsoever. The frame rate was pretty much stable throughout the whole game, and the controls are pretty responsive too, so no complaints here. Of course, if you were to try more intensive graphical games such as Genshin Impact, you will get the phone to stutter. However, games such as PUBG, Call of Duty, Asphalt 9 and so on should work perfectly fine. Here's how the phone compares in size against the Nokia G20, the Nokia 8.3, and the Nokia X10. So here are my first impressions after using the phone for around an hour. When it comes to performance, Nokia Mobile did not cut any costs compared to the X10 and the X20, which is great news because the phone feels snappy and gaming performance is actually really good. The build quality and the design, as you'd expect from the brand, is pretty awesome. Even the main 48 megapixel camera seems really promising, and based on my previous experiences with the X10 and the X20, an even larger battery capacity means that the battery life on this thing is gonna be great. You're also getting 2 years of OS updates and 3 years of security updates, which is a nice addition for this sort of price range. And the fact that Nokia Mobile didn't skimp out at all on 5G bands is good news for future-proofing the device. However, there are definitely some corners that were cut to keep the price down compared to even the Nokia X10. The most glaring one being the resolution of the display. Yes, the display is big and bright and looks decently fine. However, the resolution at HD Plus is quite low, especially when it's stretched at such a display size. So this is definitely something that you have to keep in mind. You also get a slightly more conservative front design. So the bottom bezel is notably bigger and you also get a V-notch, which is obviously a cost-cutting measure. However, as a package, I'm pleasantly surprised. I consider the X10 really good value for money for what you get, and the G50 isn't far behind. You get a lower resolution display, but you actually get a bigger battery life to compensate for it, and you lose out on an additional camera on the back, which is the macro camera, which I consider pretty much useless. Stay tuned for the full review where I will be properly testing every single aspect of the G50. If you have any questions regarding the G50, please leave them in the comments down below. That's it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up to support the channel and subscribe if you're enjoying my content, and I shall see you in the next one.